girls, it's been over a week since we last read any of our Ozma of Oz story. If you recall, in the last chapter called The 11 Guesses, Ozma was allowed to make 11 guesses to find the family of Ev from the Nome King's assortment of knickknacks. And she was not successful, and she got turned into a knickknack as well. All of the rest of her party, the Tin Woodman, the Scarecrow, Dorothy, all the soldiers that were with her, they all have the same chances to try to find now Ozma and the family of Ev. And the Tin Woodman had just decided he would go next. So he is getting ready to go into the chambers of the Nome King and touch different items around the palace, the castle, or whatever, and say Oz or Ev. And if they turn into one of the people he's looking for, everybody's fine. They all get to go home. If they don't, he makes all his guesses and he doesn't find anybody. He gets turned into a knickknack too. So the next chapter is called The Nome King Laughs. So, which makes me wonder if the Nome King thinks all of this is very funny, that he is not really all that worried about anybody finding any of these people and turning them back into themselves, and he just thinks it's all a big game. In a moment, the king returned to his throne and relighted his pipe, and the rest of the little band of adventurers settled themselves for another long wait. They were greatly disheartened by the failure of their girl ruler and the knowledge that she was now an ornament in the Nome King's palace, a dreadful, creepy place in spite of all of its magnificence. Without their little leader, they did not know what to do next, and each one, down to the trembling private of the army, began to fear he would soon be more ornamental than useful. Suddenly the Nome King began to laugh. Ha ha ha! Hee hee hee! Ho ho ho! "What's happened?" asked the Scarecrow. "Why, your friend the Tin Woodman has become the funniest thing you can imagine," replied the king, wiping tears of merriment from his eyes. "No one would ever believe he could make such an amusing ornament. Next!" They gazed at each other with sinking hearts. One of the generals began to weep dolefully. "What are you crying for?" asked the Scarecrow, indignant at such a display of weakness. "He owed me 6 weeks' back pay," said the general, "and I hate to lose him." "Then you shall go and find him," declared the Scarecrow. "Me?" cried the general, greatly alarmed. "Certainly, it is your duty to follow your commander. March." "I won't," said the general. "I'd like to, of course, but I just simply won't." The Scarecrow looked inquiringly at the Nome King. "Never mind," said the jolly monarch. "If he doesn't care to enter the palace and make his guesses, I'll throw him into one of my fiery furnaces." "I'll go! Of course I'm going," yelled the general, as quick as a scat. "Where is the entrance? Where is it? Let me go at once." So the Nome King escorted him into the palace and again returned to await the result. What the general did, no one can tell, but it was not long before the king called for the next victim, and the colonel was forced to try his fortune. Thus, one after another, all of the 26 officers filed into the palace and made their guesses, and became ornaments. Meantime, the king ordered refreshments to be served to those waiting, and at his command a rudely shaped gnome entered bearing a tray. This gnome was not unlike the others that Dorothy had seen, but he wore a heavy gold chain around his neck to show that he was the chief steward of the Nome King. He assumed such an air of importance, and even told his majesty not to eat too much cake late at night, or he would fall ill. Dorothy, however, was hungry, and she was not afraid of being ill, so she ate several cakes and found them good, and she also drank a cup of excellent coffee made from richly flavored clay, browned in the furnaces and then ground fine, and found it most refreshing and not at all muddy. Of all the party which had started upon this adventure, the little Kansas girl was now left alone with the Scarecrow, Tik-Tok, and the private for the counselors and companions. Of course, the Cowardly Lion and the Hungry Tiger were still there, but they, having also eaten some of the cake, had gone to sleep at one side of the cave, while upon the other side stood the Sawhorse, motionless and silent, as became a mere thing of wood. Bellina had walked quietly around and picked up the crumbs of the cake, which had been scattered, and now, as it was long after bedtime, she tried to find some dark place in which to go to sleep. Presently the hen spied a hollow underneath the king's rocky throne and crept unnoticed into it. She could still hear the chattering of those around her, but it was almost dark underneath the throne, so that she had fast fallen asleep. "Next!" called the king, and the private, whose turn it was to enter the fatal palace, shook hands with Dorothy and the Scarecrow and bade them a sorrowful goodbye, and passed through the rocky portal. They waited a long time, for the private was in no hurry to become an ornament, and made his guesses very slowly. The Gnome King, who seemed to know by some magical power all that took place in his beautiful rooms of his palace, grew impatient finally and declared he would sit up no longer. "I love ornaments," he said, "but I can wait until tomorrow to get more of them. So as soon as that silly private is transformed, we will all go to bed and leave the job to be finished in the morning." "Is it so very late?" asked Dorothy. "Why, it is after midnight," said the king, "and that strikes me as being late enough. There is neither night nor day in my kingdom, because it is under the earth's surface, where the sun does not shine. But we have to sleep just the same as the upstairs people do, and for my part I'm going to bed in a few minutes." Indeed, it was not long after this that the private made his last guess. Of course he guessed wrongly, and of course he at once became an ornament. So the king was greatly pleased and clapped his hands to summon his chief steward. "Show these guests to some of the sleeping apartments," he commanded, "and be quick about it too, for I'm dreadfully sleepy myself." "You've no business to sit up so late," replied the steward gruffly. "You'll be as cross as a griffin tomorrow morning." His Majesty made no answer to this remark, and the chief steward led Dorothy through another doorway into a long hall, from which several plain but comfortable sleeping rooms opened. The little girl was given the first room, and the Scarecrow and Tik-Tok the next, although they never slept, and the Lion and the Tiger the third. The Sawhorse hobbled after the steward into a fourth room, to stand stiffly in the center of the room until morning. Each night was rather a bore to Scarecrow, Tik-Tok, and the Sawhorse, but they had learned from experience to pass the time patiently and quietly, as all their friends who were made of flesh had to sleep and did not like to be disturbed. When the chief steward had left them alone, the Scarecrow remarked sadly, "I am in great sorrow over the loss of my comrade the Tin Woodman. We have had many dangerous adventures together and escaped them all, and now it grieves me to know he has become an ornament and is lost to me forever." "He was always an ornament to society," said Tik-Tok. "True, but now the Nome King laughs at him and calls him the funniest ornament in the palace. It would hurt my poor friend's pride to be laughed at," continued the Scarecrow sadly. "We will make rather absurd ornaments ourselves tomorrow," observed the machine in his monotonous voice. Just then Dorothy ran into their room in a state of great anxiety, crying, "Where's Bellina? Have you seen Bellina? Is she here?" "No," answered the Scarecrow. "Then what has become of her?" asked the girl. "Why, I thought she was with you," said the Scarecrow. "Yet I do not remember seeing the yellow hen since she picked up the crumbs of cake." "We must have left her in the room where the king's throne is," decided Dorothy, and at once she turned and ran down the hall to the door through which they had entered. But it was fast closed and locked on the other side, and the heavy slab of rock proved to be so thick that no sound could pass through it, so Dorothy was forced to return to her chamber. The Cowardly Lion stuck his head into her room to try to console the girl for the loss of her feathered friend. "The yellow hen is well able to take care of herself," he said, "so don't worry about her. Try to get all the sleep you can. It has been a long and weary day, and you need rest." "I'll probably get lots of rest tomorrow when I become an ornament," Dorothy said sleepily. But she lay down on her couch nevertheless, and in spite of all her worries, was soon in the land of dreams. What do you think the Tin Man might have gotten turned into that would be so funny? Do you think any of these characters that are left, the Scarecrow, Tik-Tok, Dorothy, will be able to find any of their friends and turn them back into people instead of decorations? And do you think that the drink Dorothy had, it said she drank a cup of excellent coffee made from richly flavored clay. Clay is a type of dirt. Do you think you would like drinking a drink made of dirt? I don't think I would. The next chapter is called Dorothy Tries to Be Brave. So, my guess is tomorrow she will be the one going around and touching the ornaments to see if she can find her friends or the royal family of Ev. So, we'll have to find out tomorrow what happens next. You guys have a good afternoon, and I'll see you tomorrow.